Now, the challenge is that a lot of churches are able to get this grant, but are not able to maximize this grant. I think right now they say the average spend across all nonprofits using this grant is about $300 per month. So the important thing for your church is if you want to be able to maximize this full $10,000 a month, you need to have content tailored to each thing that someone's searching for. Welcome to Growing Churches with Judson, where we explore real stories and practical strategies from churches that are thriving so you can grow yours too. Hey, welcome to the Growing Churches podcast. I am Judson, your host, and in this episode, I wanted to do something a little bit more unique. Every once in a while, we'll have this where we'll kind of break away from the normal process of interviewing a successful church and really get into what are some strategies that can actually help your church grow. And in this specific episode, I want to talk about the Google Ad Grant. There's a lot of questions around the Google Ad Grant, especially in the most recent year or so with AI coming out. There's been a lot of struggles in terms of, for a lot of churches, finding ways to maximize the value of this Google grant. So in this episode, I want to talk about how can you maximize this Google grant? How do you get the most value out of it? We'll go over strategies in terms of how you come up with great content strategies, how you can actually go about maximizing the grant using strategies within your Google Ads account as well. There's a few things that we really want to focus on in order to get that value out of that Google grant. Now, of course, maximizing that full $10,000 every month is something that every church wants to do. But really more important is we want to use this as a ministry tool. We want to use this as a tool that will actually provide value for people in our area and will actually attract new guests into our door. What we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about what the Google grant is and then really how you can maximize that grant. We won't get into as many of the details in terms of how to actually acquire that grant, as we do have a free course on that you can always take advantage of on how to acquire that grant. We also have a free course on how to manage that Google grant as well. So if you really wanted to get into the details and really get a glimpse into what a Google Ad Grant account looks like, then what you can always do is you can go and take one of those free courses on our website. So let's dive right in. So the Google grant, what is this Google Ad Grant? Now the Google grant is a $10,000 per month grant, and it's specifically for 501c3 nonprofits. So as long as your church is a 501c3, you would be eligible for this Google grant. Now, most churches I understand are 501c3s. There's only been a couple of churches we've run into where that's not the case. And so most likely your church is able to get this Google grant and utilize this Google grant. So that's great news. Now, the challenge is that a lot of churches are able to get this grant, but are not able to maximize this grant. I think right now they say the average spend across all nonprofits using this grant is about $300 per month. And so, as you'd imagine, if you're only able to spend that $300 per month, that's pretty disappointing when you know that you can potentially be spending $10,000 every month. So really to maximize that, the idea is you got to obviously have that expertise, you got to do that training, you got to figure out what those compliance rules are, and you also have to know how to really promote valuable content. But now before we jump into all of that, a few more things about this grant. This $10,000 every month is specifically for Google search ads. So it does not work for YouTube ads. It does not work for like image-based ads that you see across the web. It's just for those text-based ads that you see on Google search. So I'm sure you're familiar, like when you do a search on Google, the first few results that you see at the top of the Google results page are typically ads, right? They have got that sponsored on them. So those are the ads that you could be showing up in those initial few results without having to pay for it. Usually companies have to pay Google a couple of dollars every time someone clicks on that result. But as a nonprofit, the benefit is you don't have to pay for those clicks because you've got this $10,000 every single month in free credits. So in order to really maximize this Google grant, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are creating ads related to things that people are actually searching for. And then we also have to make sure we have content on our website related to that ad, right? And related to what they were searching for. So Really, to maximize this grant, what I always tell churches is it comes down to content. It comes down to having valuable content on your website. What a lot of churches do wrong with this grant, or how they try to maximize it, and they realize obviously they're only able to spend that $300 per month, and most of the time that's because they're driving everyone to their homepage, or they're driving everyone to just a couple of pages on their website. And the problem with that is that Google values having content that matches up with what people are searching for. And if you are, for example, let's say someone is typing into Google, "Does God love me?" and you want to show up at the top of Google for that search term, but you're just driving them to your homepage. Now, if someone were typing, put yourself in the searcher's shoes. If you were typing into Google, "Does God love me?" and then you land on a page and it's just the homepage of a church, would that be helpful? Probably not, right? Because there's tons of information on that homepage. Maybe there's something on the homepage there about God's love, but that homepage is not all about that one topic. What you're going to want is you're going to want to land on a blog post titled, "God loves you," or, whatever that title is related to God's love. Or you want to land on a sermon topic related to God's love. So when you're typing in, "Does God love me?" you want to get an actual answer to that question. So the important thing for your church is, if you want to be able to maximize this full $10,000 a month, you need to have content tailored to each thing that someone's searching for. So you want to start by figuring out what people are searching for, and that is that keyword research to figure out, and there's tons of free tools out there to figure out what people are searching for in your area. Once you get an idea of what people are searching for, a lot of times what we run into is big topics would be like anxiety, depression, parenting, marriage. A lot of people might be searching for, "I'm struggling with anxiety, what do I do?" And you might wonder, okay, well, how does a church help with that? Well, hopefully you find a way that a church can help with that, because it's a huge topic that people are searching for and struggling with. And so your church, what you could do is, you very well might have a sermon on the topic of anxiety, right? And if that were the case, you could be driving that person to your sermon on anxiety. And same thing as if you have a blog post. And if you don't have a blog post on that topic, now with AI, it's super easy to create content for something like that. So what I would recommend is take ChatGPT and, have it write a blog post, prompt it to write a blog post on how to deal with anxiety from an evangelical Christian perspective, and using scripture references throughout. And then also what I would say is tell it to scan over your website, give it your domain name and say, "Hey, I want it written in our voice. Here's our website." You could even feed it some of your sermon content. So there's so many ways that you can easily write content through AI, but making sure that it's tailored to your voice. So that would be something that we recommend to tons of churches is, hey, start creating blog content on these various topics. And still to this day, blogs tend to rank at the top of Google. When you have a video on your website, Google's not able to scan through all of that video content as easily as it is able to scan through words on your page. So blog posts still do the best today. And the cool thing too is that if you have blog content on these various topics, and you're ranking for those with the Google grant, these blog posts will also start ranking organically on Google. So you're kind of hitting two birds with one stone. You're not just ranking with the Google ad grant, but you're also able to rank organically on Google for these various blog posts. I'm sure that you've noticed, like when you do a search on Google, typically a lot of those initial results organically, like underneath the ads, are blogs. And these businesses write these blogs because they want to show up at the top of Google. A lot of times if you type in like, top sales softwares, you will see that maybe Salesforce or HubSpot might show up at the top with a blog post that they have. HubSpot has done a great job with this, is that you constantly see their blog posts at the top of Google. And the reason they're writing those blog posts is because they want to be showing up at the top, right? So blog content is definitely the way to go, because you're able to really maximize the Google grant with that, because it's valuable content based off of what people are searching for. You're also able to rank super high organically with that blog post. And then thirdly, now with AI, the cool thing is that you're able to start showing up in AI results because of those blog posts. So if you have a blog post that is ranking high on Google, that has high authority, is ranking at the top, then all of these AI tools are trained on, the internet. And a lot of them are looking at what's ranking at the top of Google and at the top of search engines, and they're pulling from that. And we've had that as well. We've had a lot of churches that find us and they say, we found you because we were looking on Perplexity, or found you because we were looking on, ChatGPT or whatever that AI tool is. And I know that that's because of blog posts that we have that it's pulling from that are already ranking at the top of Google. So we were already ranking well organically on Google. So now that AI is out, it's just pulling from content that we already have online, and it's making us show up at the top of Google as well, or at the top of AI results as well. So content is king when it comes to making sure that you can rank on Google, making sure you rank on AI, making sure that you can really maximize this Google ad grant. So the next thing I would say is the blog posts are huge and making sure you've got that content, but then you also have to make sure you're writing these ads correctly. If someone is typing in, we'll go back to that topic of anxiety. If someone is typing in, I'm dealing with anxiety, what do I do? You want to make sure that you've got an ad group created. So basically there's campaigns, there's ad groups, and then there's keywords. And you want to make sure that your campaign might be blogs, right? That might be one of your campaigns. And then each ad group should be a specific blog post. So the ad group could be anxiety, right? On that topic of anxiety. And within that ad group, you have keywords and you have ads. So you want to make sure that you have a couple of ads so that they can compete against each other and, see which ad performs best. And then you also want to make sure that you've got keywords that are closely related to anxiety. So you don't want to overdo it with keywords. If you're putting like 20 to 30 keywords in there, Google doesn't love that, because in reality, if you have that many keywords, then it's probably hitting on things kind of outside of the topic. So what you want to focus on is focus on 5 to 10 keywords within each ad group. So that ad group on anxiety, or how to deal with anxiety, you might have an ad, might have a keyword that says how to deal with anxiety, or why am I struggling with anxiety? But it should all be around the topic of anxiety. What you also want to do is you want to make sure that those ads are actually accurate to what someone is searching for. So if someone is searching for how to deal with anxiety, then that ad should say, how to deal with anxiety, and maybe a few different variations of that. And then what you should do is you should have a call to action in there as well. So you should make sure that, your call to action should be, learn more, or, learn how to overcome anxiety. Something that is going to encourage someone to actually click on that is what you want. And then once you've got the ads matched up with that keyword or with those group of keywords, then obviously that, like we already mentioned, that landing page they land on should be all about that topic, and it should address that topic, and it should actually be helpful. You don't want to be creating clickbait type stuff where they land on it and it's actually about a different topic, or it's too self-promoting. You really do want to make sure that you answer those questions, and then at the end of that blog post, and this gets into the next part of what I want to talk about, is you want to make sure that you've got clear call to action on your website. When someone lands on your blog post, you don't want them to just land on it, read it, and then leave. You want them to take the next step at your church, right? So you want them to come visit your service, or maybe you have a support group on anxiety that they can get connected with. But whatever that call to action is, make sure you have that in your blog post, at least at the bottom of the blog post, and preferably if you could have it show up a couple of times throughout that blog post, that would be awesome, because we want them to take a next step. We don't want them just to hit the back button and go off, once they found what they were looking for. We want them to get involved with your church. So those are some ways that we recommend to really maximize the Google grant. Is it really comes down to content, having great content, writing content that is actually addressing those needs that people are searching for, making sure the ad is written correctly and is actually engaging, make sure those keywords are set up correctly. You don't have too many keywords, you don't have too little keywords within that ad group. And then you want to make sure that page that they're going to has a call to action as well. So once that's set, that is a huge part of maximizing the grant. For a lot of churches and nonprofits, it really comes down to making sure you get that content game down correctly. And a lot of churches that are not able to maximize it is because they haven't figured out how to really promote valuable content. So if you can do that, and you can, like, anything that you can pull from this episode, if you can just really get the content down, you will go a long way. Now, obviously, the other thing as well is you want to make sure that you're listening to the compliance rules that go along with this as well. So what I'm going to do is in the show notes, I think I'll go ahead and link to some of those compliance rules that come along with the Google grant. We won't walk through all of those right now. And it's something that's constantly changing. So making sure you go to the compliance rules for that and you understand what's going on, that's going to help a lot, because you don't want to lose the grant. A lot of times if you fall out of some of these compliance rules, you may lose that grant. So make sure you're always looking at those compliance rules and making sure you've got those memorized and you're not messing any of those up. And there's plenty of rules that you can set as well. So looking into, hey, what are some automated rules within my Google Ads account that I can set that'll keep me in compliance? So there's lots of things like that. And you can learn more about that in our free course that we have. We walk you through and literally share our screen to talk about how you can actually put these rules in place so that you don't have to be constantly checking them. So that's the compliance rules. That's another big part of maximizing that Google grant and making sure that you don't actually lose that Google grant. The next thing, now, really in the past, I would say 8 months or so, or I guess since September or October of 2024, a lot of the Google grant accounts have had a major dip in spend. And it wasn't just across churches that were trying to manage it on their own. This was across agencies as well. This happened to our accounts. It happened to a lot of agencies that have been managing the Google grant. We've talked to several agencies that were all experiencing the same thing. And really, I think the major reason for this is because of AI. A lot of people now are, including myself, when they're doing a search on Google, they're not always clicking on a blog post or a result on Google. They are looking at the AI response, right? They're just looking at that AI summary. They're getting a quick answer, and then off they go. And Google obviously has to do this. They've got to compete with ChatGPT and all the AI tools out there. And so that affected the Google Ad Grant. It also affected just paid Google Ads as well, and organic results, because people are just not clicking on websites as much anymore. So to help really maximize that grant, we already had a focus on content, which helped significantly. And because of that, what we've noticed is actually for a lot of agencies out there that had a huge dip in spend, our dip in spend was not as significant as a lot of agencies. And I think the reason for that is we were so heavily focused on content and having valuable content that meets people's needs. But one thing that we found has helped significantly in boosting some of those accounts that were struggling was Performance Max campaigns. Now, Performance Max campaigns have become a lot more popular, and Google has been pushing that more so really than ever before. And I think a lot of that is because of AI, and it also gives Google a lot more flexibility. And Google, you look at Google, you look at Meta, any of these advertisers, they like to have more flexibility on their end so that they don't ever run into a situation where they're not able to make as much money. So when Google has more flexibility, they can choose kind of different ways that your ads can show up, and in turn, really they can consistently make more money. The PMAX or Performance Max has been a game changer for a lot of our accounts. And this is something I would recommend for you as well. And we're introducing this into our ad grant account now that we've put in hours and hours of additional work to really figure out these PMAX campaigns to help our clients continue to maximize that full $10,000 a month. So basically, what PMAX is going to do is you are going to be much more focused on, rather than focusing on keywords and things like that, it's going to be much more focused on audience targeting. And you'll notice that when you go through the PMAX process, it is so different than just a standard search campaign. It takes longer to, usually for us, it would take 5 to 10 minutes to create an ad group within a Google Ads campaign. And now with these PMAX campaigns, it takes us more like 30 minutes. So it definitely adds more time. But what we found is it's a great way to supplement that spend and get additional spend. So we're doing both now of the PMAX campaigns and the standard search campaigns. So I would definitely recommend jumping into the PMAX campaigns. And again, if you really want to learn the nitty-gritty of how to create a great PMAX campaign, I would recommend checking out our free course so you can learn more about that. Obviously, you can Google that as well, like how to create a PMAX campaign. But I would say, look into that to really find a good video that'll show you like a step-by-step of walking through how to do that. The benefit with our course is what we'll do is we'll actually walk you through how to do that specifically for a church and for different ministries within your church, how a PMAX campaign can help really maximize that. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the big ways to help maximize your Google grant, focusing on content, also making sure you add in a few PMAX campaigns, especially since AI has been, taking over. The good news is that the Google just announced a few weeks ago that they are testing Google Ads in AI results. So in their AI mode and in their AI summaries, they're testing out Google Ads so that they're showing ads within AI results now, which is great news because so many people are focusing on AI now. And the great news is that means for the Google grant, we will continue to find ways to be able to get in front of people, whether it be with Google search or with AI or whatever that new thing is. Hopefully these were helpful, these tips. I wanted to keep this video a bit shorter here, as hopefully it's something that'll be an easy thing for you pastors and church leaders when you're on your drive to church to get a few nuggets on, hey, how can I make the most out of this Google grant? And really when it comes down to it, it's content at the end of the day. Ever since starting Click Down Profit, I always talked about, hey, content is the key to maximizing this Google grant. And that really is when that switch turns and they realize, okay, I need to be focusing on content. I need to be providing valuable content to people searching for it. It makes it so much easier maximizing that full grant. So hopefully this was helpful for you, and we'll definitely be coming out with episodes about some other things, including meta ads and local SEO and how you can really get the most value out of these. But the Google grant is a great one to start on just because you get $10,000 in free ad spend, right? So what we want to do is we want to see every church be able to take advantage of this Google grant because it's free money. It's a great way to make sure that you're good stewards of what you have. And part of that is, hey, take advantage of these grants out here that are available to your church so that you can reach people with the gospel. You can share Jesus with the world with this Google grant. And it gets us so excited to use this grant for these felt needs topics, for these faith-based topics, because there are so many hurting people in the world that are searching online for questions. They're searching for anxiety, for marital issues, for parenting issues. They're searching for, running into financial issues. They're running into these deep faith questions. Does God really love me? How do I deal with, suffering? Why does God allow that? All these big questions people have, we want them going to a church to get the answers to that and get connected in community. So the Google grant is an incredible tool. And if you ever have any questions on really how to get the most out of that Google grant, or if you ever decide that, hey, we really want someone to just take this over for us so we can focus on ministry and have someone help us maximize the value of this and use this grant to reach people in need in our community and bring them through our doors, reach out to us. You can go to clickdownprofit.com and learn more about how we can help you really get the most value out of this Google grant. Thanks so much for listening. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time on the Growing Churches podcast.